Hi, bestie. I am Faith OK.
And I'm Asia the Girl. Welcome back to the OK Girl podcast.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, it's official. Like our first episode launched already.
It's out. As of today that we're recording.
Yay.
You have hopefully already listened to.
I hope so. I mean, I believe in you. You know what? Like, I have faith that you have.
People have at least listened to something.
What's the vibe right now? What's just going on over here?
People have already listened because I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, it's launch day.
It was like Christmas.
It was. Yeah. And I woke up, it's also like unrelated, but my side hustle now is travel agent stuff. And so it's also launch day for a giant Universal park. So I was like, oh boy, let's go. It's like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm up and I'm booking things. And then I was like, it's also OK Girl launch day. Let's go check that out. And I opened Spotify. And then like the boom, you know that noise, the meme sound? Yeah. That happened. And I stared at my phone.
What?
Right there in the little corner, there's a little star. You can leave a rating. 3.0. What is that?
Dude, what?
I've never gotten a 3.0 in anything before in my life.
Ain't no way. Like, who is actually doing that? I mean, okay, I don't know if I should take that as a compliment because, like, I really love our community that we've built so far, and I just know that none of them would do that. So that means that it has. Okay, one of two things: either it's someone who's just a hater, and like maybe that means we're off to a great start.
Fantastic.
Or maybe it's like a sweet aunt who really is just trying to like support us, but they just are like, oh, a star.
I'm a star.
Yeah, we did the math and we're like, someone definitely did 1-star rating.
Yeah, because it was 2 ratings at the time,
which I expected because we literally just started.
Yes, yeah. 2 ratings, and 1 was a 5-star.
Awesome.
And 1 was a 1-star, which gives you 3.
Averages.
It averages to 3. I literally looked at my phone, and then I said, what the frick? Who did this? Who did this? And I think then I started replaying the episode in my head, right? I'm like, what did I do? And then I realized at the end of the episode, I said, leave us a 5-star rating. And you said, leave us a 5-star. And then I said, yeah, so we can keep doing this. Or honestly, if you leave us a 1-star, I don't care.
You're right.
We'll keep doing it anyways.
That's true.
It's all my fault. They skipped to the end of the episode and they said that I could leave a 1-star, and that's all the permission I needed.
I mean, if anything, we're just like revealing our own, in a positive way, character, because you're like, look at us, we're still doing it.
We are.
Yeah. So
I wasn't lying. I wasn't. You. Yeah. Don't do that though.
Yeah. Don't.
I did text Asia and I said, are these anonymous? Who did this?
And I hope that you all feel good about this. They definitely are anonymous. There's no, I mean, maybe there's a way, but I don't know that way to find out who.
I really wanted to know, and Spotify said, no, you cannot have that power.
Relax.
I'm over it. It's fine. I'll take my 3.0. I guess that's passing.
But since then, we saw the ratings, and people are loving the podcast because it's already way higher than 3.0 average rating. So
let's go.
Thanks, besties.
Yeah, thank you, besties. But besides that, I am very excited that it's launch day, and we did the thing, and we have a podcast.
We do. It's like actually happening. It was funny because after we recorded the first one, we were like, okay, I feel like less nervous because like we both know each other well enough that we could like tell like body language and like mannerisms, and we both could like sense that the other was like, a little nervous getting started with that first episode. But as obviously we kept going, like I felt really good like by the end of it, and I think like it's just that awkward, just gotta jump in and start somewhere. But we made it.
We did it.
We're here.
And this is episode 3.
Yes, this is episode 3.
Yeah,
that's so crazy. And I'm really excited to tackle what we're talking about today, which is the Enneagram. But before I like get into that more, my little fun story for today is Luke is on my husband Luke is on his way to a job, and we did the Enneagram course together that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I was trying to give him some resources of like, hey, here, like I really love this podcast called the Enneacast. Like I thought it was like a really great like way to understand the Enneagram. And so I sent him some episodes that were like like his core type, and then types that he just like scored really high on. And then I was like, oh, also the Okay Girl pod like launched today, like here's the first episode. And then later he texted back, great episode. And I was like, the Enneacast or our podcast? And he was like, yours. I was like, oh, yay.
You immediately turned into the shy girl.
Wait a minute.
Shy girl meme of like,
yeah, exactly.
Your fingers pointing together. Did you mean my podcast?
Did you mean mine?
You thought it was great.
Exactly. Which actually is like, not that Luke's a hater. He's not a hater.
No.
But he like needs like he processes things in a different way. So when we first brought up the idea of the Okay Girl podcast to him, he was like, I asked him, I was like, are you like into it? Are you excited? And he was like, I am. I just don't know what it is. And so the fact that he really enjoyed that first episode.
That was my thought whenever you said that. I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
Because at first I remember you texting me being like, Luke was like, I just don't understand what it's about. What are you doing? And I was like, here's my spiel. And so that's reassuring to know that someone that wasn't sure listened to it. Yes. Someone who is not as delulu as us. He's delulu in his own ways.
He is delulu more than he let on.
Yeah, but to know that someone not as delulu as us enjoyed it. Yeah. That's a good so sign. Perfect. Maybe he won Stardust.
Maybe he did.
Before he listened.
He would never do that to me.
I'm kidding.
But yeah, we're talking about the Enneagram today.
Yes.
I'm so excited because Faith has a psychology background, and I just like really am into personalities and communication. I'm also like into like cross-cultural stuff. I just like love like seeing the ways that people are wired differently and how like it helps like actually bring us closer together by understanding those differences. And one of the best tools that I personally connect with is called the Enneagram. And if you're unfamiliar, there's so much that we can get into, and we'll get into some of it today, at least in the context of like our own types. But there are 9 different core types that that you likely are. You tend to be one of those, and they range from, I'm not gonna like get into all of it, but they range from like more like driven by your head type personalities, driven by your heart type personalities, and then driven by your gut, or like like not like in a weird way, like your gut instinct, like and so those are like the 3 categories, and each of those have 3 different like types under that. And Faith and I are going to explore our types. There is a great resource, including the Enneacast. I really love that one as well as a podcast, but also the EnneagramInstitute.com is like my favorite go-to place to like dig into it more and understand the differences. And like I said, we'll get into it. But it's just as a great way to understand how you yourself are wired, and like it just is a lens in which to see like how you may have become who you are and how you can grow as a person. Because like even though you have a core type, you likely, or you should have other areas of your personality that don't lean towards that core type, and that's a good thing. Like you want to explore like okay, if you are more like me, like a peaceful person, there definitely can be ways where you can be more of a challenger or more of a reformer, or just like ways that you can engage the world beyond just like desiring for peace. And same for Faith, and same for any of us. Like I think like what our tendency with I think there's like multiple tendencies when it comes to personality typing and understanding more of personalities. Like it's very easy to think like, oh, I'm like boxing myself in, I'm boxing other people into like who they are, and it becomes very like stereotypical of like, oh, they're such a fill in the blank, or I'm such a fill in the blank. Like, but really it should empower you to move beyond what you are comfortable with and what you know, to grow more, like understand yourself more, and then learn like the areas that like there's a lot of opportunity to engage with people in the world in a different way, even if it's not like what's like natural to you.
Yeah, it was in the most recent introduction, and kind of we'll talk about why we're talking about it. But in that most recent introduction for me, they were saying this is kind of like a tool belt. You have 9 different tools. You use them in different ways. They do different things. And you're not always going to need a hammer all the time. Sometimes you need a screwdriver more often, depending on what you're doing. And so while it is like you have a core tool that you reach towards, you're not always going to use that one, but you're not always going to use all of the tools all the time. Right. So I think that was like helpful for me to visualize what we're talking about. So the reason we're talking Enneagram, other than just because we both love personality tests and all of these things, is that our church that we go to decided to revisit. So they do an Enneagram class, I feel like every few years. And this was my first time getting to do one. So they are revisiting the Enneagram, and it was a 4-week class. We met once a week, and just kind of the first week was kind of our introduction, and then we went we went triad by triad. And in those triads that Asia talked about of head, heart, and gut. And so I retook the test for the first time in a very long time. Yeah. And Asia, when was the last time?
Probably like 5 years ago. I took the tests for the first time, 5 or 6 years ago. So it was like interesting taking it again and like just seeing, how are things going right now?
Yeah. So we both have like revisited, retaken the test. And so it's like on our minds, freshly. And so we were like, this is perfect to just yap about our Enneagrams. And so the plan is that we're going to talk about our core types and kind of just like our general scores. We have our folders with all of our scores in them and all of the notes and everything, but we'll talk about like who we are as our core type, but also then how we see that core type play out, whether it's at work or home or in relationships. And then we're going to talk about our friendship as our core types and how they complement or clash. And then I think that covers, we'll talk about
like how
also
we're growing,
how we
how
we can grow, what challenges are we like feel that we face in this, it being that core type. And so I'm excited to talk about it. We've been kind of like keeping it a little more we've talked about it a little bit, but we've kept it a little more to ourselves in preparation to share it all with you guys.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
All right. So just so everyone has a good frame of reference, I will go ahead and like list the types. The first type is called the good person. The second type is the loving person. The third is the effective person. The 4 is the original person. 5 is the wise person. 6 is the loyal person. 7 is the joyful person. We love our 7s. 8 is the powerful person, and 9 is the peaceful person. So those are the general like types that you can be, and that like there's so much to unpack just by like knowing what that core type is. So on that, I would love to know, and everyone would love to know your
core
results.
type. Yeah. So like I said, I retook the test. So I guess it probably would have been about 5-6 years ago whenever I took this the first time, and it was not through WEPS, which is the
like official
the like official creator of like a very reliable Enneagram test. And so I just took a random one online, and I was a 3. And at the time that made sense for me. I was in college. I was, it's the effective person, the achiever is another word. And so that made sense for me. Everything came from like my academics. I had to be the best and look successful in that.
Yeah.
But now that I've retaken it, I've lived a little bit more life. I've had some events happen that we can talk about too. But I am now an 8, which is the powerful person or the challenger. And at first I saw that and I was like, I don't really know, like maybe, because let me say my 8 score is 87% and my 3 score is 82%. After that, they all go 60 below. So I don't have any others that are kind of competing. I would say at first I was like, maybe my 3 is still like who I am. But then as we learned about the 3s more in depth, I was like, I don't think that's me. Like,
it's like, I don't think like reputation or like how people view you is like you're driving.
I've moved past that. That's, and like, not to say that's bad. Like,
no.
I obviously still
There's always
have
a healthy
that
version of
exactly. Yeah. So, and I still have that obviously at an 82%. So it's not that I don't care at all, but it's that it's not really what I'm constantly thinking of. And so, yeah, whenever we learned about the 8s, we learned about them actually last night. And I was like, whoa. We were all like giggling at our table, and we actually at the very beginning we got called out in a funny way. They were like, giggles over there, and I was like, all the time, always.
Always
put us together and we're giggling. But it was because it was just like everything that was said, I was like, so real. That's so true. That's so real. So expectation wise, I expected 3. I guess I wasn't very aware of 8s.
Yeah.
I think I only have met one friend over my life since I've been aware of the Enneagram that's been like a very strong 8.
Yeah.
And we are not the same at all.
Yeah.
And so I was like, can't be me.
You're like, ain't no way. Excuse me.
So it was surprising to have a different result. At the same time, I do remember before we took it, I was like, I think my result might be different though. So for context, I won't trauma dump on anyone, but
this is safe space, girl.
Safe space. Okay, girl, here we go. So for me, my childhood, I had a very violent and aggressive brother, and so I think that there is an aspect of that plays into 8s.
For sure.
And so we talked a lot about inner child in the class and how it's kind of like I put on this exterior so that you can't hurt my inner child, because we're protecting her. And so I feel that having an aggressive brother that did require like a lot of attention from my parents, like I think that's also where the 3 came in too, though, is that like I can just achieve my way to get the attention I needed.
Yeah.
And so like if I had 4.0 in school, my parents would be like, great job, you know? And so that was part of it too. But having that violent, aggressive brother, I was taught to just fight. Like, he's aggressive, you have to be ready to defend yourself. And so that was part of it. And then I got engaged really early in college. Wild time. So
another era.
A whole era of faith that was like Christian girl, ring by spring. Like that was me. Which is wild and strange to think. But like we got engaged very early because we had already been dating for so long in high school. And then we had been together for 4 or 5 years whenever I found out he was cheating on me. And so then I was like, I had realized I had lost so much of myself in that relationship, trying to just like be what he needed or be what he wanted. And so I think that I kind of suppressed my more powerful hard exterior for a man. Don't do that.
Don't, please.
Don't do that for anybody, but especially not a man. Oh gosh, it's so embarrassing. But that's actually how I felt, was that it was like embarrassing that I had like let this man change who I was, and then also was embarrassed that I trusted him and was vulnerable with him, and then he hurt me. And so moving forward, I was like, that'll never happen again. No one's going to embarrass me. Nobody's going to know that I'm vulnerable. If I'm not vulnerable, they can't embarrass me because I don't trust anybody. That's my, like, I literally, after I called off my engagement, I was like, the thing that normal people do is go to therapy.
Right.
So I'm going to go to therapy. And I sat down in a therapist's office. She was, I, like, sat down and she was like, so how are you? And I was like, I think I'm pretty okay, all considering. And she was like, all considering what? And I was like, I just called off my engagement of like a few years. Like at that point we had been engaged for like 3 years. And I was like, I called off my engagement of like 2 or 3 years. And so I'm just like, I'm also in college. My family doesn't live here. And so like, it's kind of hard, but like, whatever. And she was like, okay. She would be like, you know, trying to dive deeper, and I'd like drop a nugget of vulnerability to be like, this is therapy. And so like I went to therapy twice with her, and I was like, I'm done. I'm fine.
I'm actually good now.
I'm good. But I had done therapy before that and have like, you know, done it after, but that therapist in that moment, I was like, this feels like the thing I should do to be vulnerable. And then she was like, I don't think you like vulnerability. And I was like, how dare you? Honestly.
What do you mean? I'm giving you gold right now.
I just told you I ended my engagement.
Like, what else do you want from me?
So yeah, therapy did not go far in that era of my life. But that's just kind of, from there out, I kind of lived in this like hard exterior, very aggressive thing. And we can talk more later when we're talking like growth and all of that. But I was very like hard exterior as a protection for myself, and also just to like make sure other people around me didn't feel what I felt in that. Like now I'm very much, you know, like I'll fight anybody that hurts anybody that I love or care about, or even attempts to, or even has a look on their face that looks like they might think about it. I'm like, do I need to fight them? But I think that like after knowing more about Enneagram, because I was kind of just, it had just been like an evangelical church tool to me at first. And so now knowing more about it, I do feel like if I had known what I know now, I would have been like, oh, I'm totally an 8.
Yeah, right.
But before that, I was like, I don't know. I don't know about that. But yeah, I think that mostly covers me. I guess we can talk too, like, my wing is a 7.
Yeah.
My 7 is a 55%, and my 9 is a 13%. So I'm definitely a wing 7. And I honestly think that comes from my relationship with Nick.
Yeah.
I was not spontaneous. I was a color-coded planner girly in college. And then Nick came into my life with all of his amazing 7 hurricane energy. And I was like, oh, okay, we're spontaneous now. So, you know, I think that it's fun to, like, it's a nice balance to not always feel like I have to be, like, ready to fight, that I can, like, let loose and, like, go get a tattoo or go to a random concert or, like, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's my wing. My wing is resourceful, which is nice.
Girl, get it.
My core is non-resourceful by 1%.
You're like, come on. Let me take it again.
Yeah, let me take it again. I'll do better this time.
That's so funny.
But yeah, I think that kind of summarizes it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
Yeah. So I first learned about the Enneagram at a like very relaxed work environment. I was doing like whatever, it doesn't really matter, but I was hanging out in a very open like production environment. Like, it was a warehouse, but it was not like a warehouse vibe. I don't know how to describe it. Like, we were just like chatting up all the time, and the people that were working there were like telling me about the Enneagram. I'd never heard of it, and I told them something about how like I really love personality tests and blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, you need to learn about the Enneagram. And so before I was able to take the test, I learned about all like the core types, and I remember specifically thinking through like, oh, I wonder what I'll be. Like, based on everything I had read, I was like, I bet I'm probably like a 2, the loving person. Like, the loving person is also known as like the helper. They are like really good at anticipating needs, and they're just like there for people all the time. And I was like, I'm probably like that. Like, that sounds right. And so then I took the WEPS test, like the official one, because I was like, I want it to be thorough, whatever. And that's when I first received my score of a 9. I was also a 9 wing 8 back then as well. I'll talk about the wing in a second. But when I first saw that, I would like I had to like sit with it for a while, because I was like, I don't know if that's true. Because like, one of the thing that's interesting about the Enneagram is like, not only are you in like a triad where there's like a core like like negative feeling that you deal with. So like for both me and Faith, actually, we're both in the guilt triad, and so we, you know, everything about us is like, I don't know, based in, or can be based in like, do we feel guilt over something? And that obviously looks different for each of the types. But another thing that specifically 9s are associated with is like laziness and like being asleep to yourself. And I just was like, is that me? Is that true? And I was like thinking about it for a long time. And then as I like unpack, I think it took like a whole like day or a couple of days where I just like thought through it. And I was, like I said, working at a warehouse doing production, so I'm just like listening to all these podcasts like about the 9, and I'm like thinking through like, is that me? And by the end of that day or those 2 days or whatever, I was like, no, this really is me. So the 9 is the peaceful person, and I think what really helped me see like why I felt conflicted was we talked about it in the class as well, like 3s may the what is the 3 called? I always forget. The effective person or the achiever person can like flex styles because like flex the way that they appear or the way they present to people for the sake of like looking like put together and looking like they're an achiever. But the nines, the peaceful people, they tend to style flex based on what are the needs of the group or the person that you're relating with. And I think because of that, like I do tend to have more more like helpful, like the helper type, the loving type behaviors, and other not just two, but like other behaviors that maybe are not typical of a nine, but it's always based on like what do people in the room need. But when I'm really like stripping everything down, like thinking about myself, like I definitely am someone who is driven by like, am I at peace? More so like, we can get into like the details of this later, but like I mostly care about the like peace within like a room or in a community, whatever my circle is. There are we didn't talk about in this class because it's kind of like an intro class, but there are, I can't remember if I told you about the subtypes thing. There are different subtypes in your type where like you're more focused on like self-preservation, you're more focused on like a one-on-one one-to-one relationship, or you're more focused on like the social, like the group at large. And I'm definitely always like focused on the group at large. And what I think is interesting about that is, you know, what I didn't know until learning about the Enneagram was like, it really is not understating the fact, or there's no understatement that is possible when it comes to thinking about how your childhood has like helped develop who you are. Like truly, like those are the formidable years. And like, just because you're like grown up now and you're not a kid doesn't mean that everything that happened to you when you were a kid hasn't affected you. I'm not saying that you have to like camp in that and never like move past that. Like I think that would be unhealthy if you're like not able to like move forward. But I think it's like really important to acknowledge like how like your upbringing and what your environment looked like growing up really did affect you. So for me, like I am the oldest and the only girl, and I never had like an authoritative like classic like oldest sibling I don't know thing about me. I don't know if me and Jake were talking about this the other day because like our middle brother, I love him. Growing up, he was very stubborn and like wouldn't listen to me anyways if I told him what to do. And so I kind of was like, I'm not gonna like force this.
There's no point.
There's no point in that. All right. And so then I just like style flexed around him, but more so I don't know if that like really affected me as much as like I love my parents. They are awesome. I respect them. They've grown so much, but they also admit that like they didn't have like a lot of active involvement in our like, I don't know, like our character and spiritual like upbringing. I mean, maybe character a little bit, but like they know that they were not like spiritual guidance to us growing up, and they had a lot going on, and we've like talked through that, and like so I don't feel like uncomfortable bringing that up. But with all of that, I felt like my mom and Jacob are really similar, but they just like they embody emotions very fully, and it was a lot. And I remember I butted heads with my mom growing up because she was very type A, I was very type B, and she didn't understand why. And there were like a lot of times where I don't know, I'd be like frustrated with her being frustrated with me, and I'd talk to my dad about it, who me and my dad are like wired very similarly. And I'll never forget, like all growing up, he would always, I think there's like good to this, but also there was like some unhealthy things associated with this. He would always say like, you can't control people's actions, but you can control your reactions, which I think generally speaking, very good advice. Yeah. However, I think like because of that, the way that I embodied that all growing up was like, I can control a situation by just like always de-escalating, and if the best way to de-escalate is to never like bring up how I feel about something or my reaction to something, that's the only way that's gonna make this like, you know, intense situation like brought back down. And so I think like just over time doing that, like that really no, like it was like super formidable for like me. So really it took me a while, which I think it is like perfect for a 9 to like have to process through like, am I a 9? Like for a while, because like, yeah, I tend to be really numb to my own emotions and numb to how I'm like, what my like own viewpoint on something is. I have to dig really, really deep to understand that. Well, we can talk about more of this in growth when we're talking about like growth, but like one of the ways that I have like grown since like learning about the Enneagram was, you know, me and people like me tend to like really, someone in the class like mentioned this and I loved it so much. It was like, you do like this like mental gymnastics where you like feel really strongly about something initially, if you notice that at all, and then you kind of like contextualize it and you like explain it away to the point where like your feeling that was like massive becomes like small or non-existent. And I think like when I do that to myself and I start like renaming like, oh, I wasn't angry about this, I was just frustrated, I was just whatever, like I have to like slow down and be like, no, okay, like what do I feel about this? Because like we're not gonna grow unless we like acknowledge it. I'm not saying that like necessarily that reaction was good and right, however, but it was real. Yeah, like you can't just ignore that that it happened. So yeah, like I think like I have been very much so like that mediator. Well, okay, I've always been that peaceful person, but I think where my 8 wing, which is Faith's core type, comes into play is like more of that active mediator type role. I think like a lot of 9s that are not like, that don't have very much like 8 in them will want peace, but won't necessarily like, will be so afraid of conflict that they won't like approach it at all. They'll just like typically like ignore until it goes away, which that's not realistic. But I feel like I tend to be, especially when like other people are wronged, I tend to like lean into those moments and I'm like, there is not going to be real peace here unless we fix this. And until so like I'm not gonna live in the discomfort of this fake peace that like no one wants to like whatever acknowledge, so let's just like tackle this and then like go back to peace. So yeah, like there's so much we could talk about, but when I tested again for this class, definitely was still a 9 wing 8. It was interesting because my scores in other types were like lower, which I was like, I don't know, I need to think about that for a while and like what that means. And I do want to talk about that in growth. But I don't know. It's just like really cool to go through this course with you. Yeah, I've loved it. I'm glad that like, it also I think brings like new perspective to definitely our friendship and everything, which we can talk about. Okay, so yeah, we got to do this class together and Asia already knew quite a bit about it, but I was very clueless to it. And so I think it's been fun to do this class and see like having an already established like strong friendship and then to learn each other's Enneagram types, I think was, at least for me, I don't know if maybe you'd already typed me in your head. I don't know if I did. I mean, I think it was confusing because, not confusing, but like you already told me what your type was before. So I was just trying to like look, I wasn't necessarily like being like, I don't know, Faith, are you a 3 or whatever? But it was, it's just interesting to like have this class after we're super informed of each other's like personalities.
Then when we're sitting here doing this class, it's like, oh, you do that. I see you do that.
And then we got called out for laughing too much.
Which is like, there's just the whole class, we were just sitting next to each other and getting to point out like how we see that in each other and how we complement each other was like really fun. So I think so we can talk how we our types complement, how we complement, and also how we clash. Do we want to start with the clash so then we can end on a positive note?
That sounds good.
Okay, so I think, so clashing wise, I do think 8s and 9s in my head, I get that they're the same triad, but the thought of a powerful person or a challenger and then the peaceful person makes no sense to me. Like how we ended up here doing this as me who seeks out or used to seek out conflict and like confrontation, and Asia who like seeks to resolve conflict, which maybe that's it. Maybe it's just like I'm bringing the chaos and then Asia's like, Please stop.
Well, I think what's interesting, like, obviously we'll talk about how it works in a second, but one thing that is ironic is I think that 8s, maybe similar to 6s, because 6, like the 6 is the loyal person. Like 8s, when they have like an idea in their head of like specifically like about a person, like they have an opinion on someone, it's a hard time to convince them any other way. And the way that they view the world and the way they view people is just like so set in stone in their mind. Whereas 9s, I found the opposite, where like you tend to like maybe like lose your own opinion on what you think about something, but you also tend to like really like hold, like without this affecting you and your opinion on that person, you can hold very conflicting views from different points of view and not like implode. And so sometimes I think it makes it like, I think when Faith's feeling like a bad vibe about a situation or a person, like, you know, something going on, so someone doing something, I think it is interesting when we have like interactions, because I'm like very like positive intent leaning, sometimes to a fault. Like I had a friend who was or is an 8 in college, and I remember specifically, I can't remember if I told you the story, I remember specifically him getting mad at me because once again I had befriended this like underclassman who I did like kind of went in head first and was like really like open, welcoming them into the group, and he was like, that's a bad person, I don't think you should do that. And then once again I found myself in a situation where I'm like, oh shoot, now I have to figure out how to like, not necessarily like in that moment break the friendship, but like I have like, we're at an impasse because this person is not being a good person, and now we have to figure it out. And he's like, see, if you would have just listened to me in the beginning, like this would have never happened. And I feel like there's like
that's very similar. I think it's also like that shows the gut in us. Like my gut instinct is like, what are they gonna try to do? Like how are they gonna hurt someone? How are they gonna be bad? And then your gut instinct is more of like, but look at this positive side of them. And now we cannot think about like any conflict that's gonna happen. Like here they are, they're great. And so it is interesting because like, I mean, we've had, you know, like friends bring new people in, like new friends in, or like, you know, dating someone or whatever. And my initial instinct is like, they're the worst human alive. Don't you dare trust them. Which is not fair. Okay, I get it. And I don't act on that.
No.
I verbal. It is because years ago I would not have I would have just been like, I don't like you. That you have bad vibes. But now I can, you know, calmly text Asia and be like, I'm not loving the vibes from this person. And it is just in me to be like, I don't trust you. You're new. How are you going to fit into this group? Are you going to hurt my friends?
It's like we both approach like encountering something new or someone new in an opposite way, where you're like, you're starting at the bottom of the totem pole here because I don't trust you.
Exactly.
And you have to earn my trust. Or I typically, with some exceptions, I typically see someone, I'm like, oh, you have done nothing to not deserve my trust, so you're starting up here. And then of course, like if something happens, like we'll figure it out when we get there.
It's like innocent until proven guilty versus guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly.
And I think that summarizes how we clash there. I don't notice us clashing in many other ways.
That's like the main thing.
I think maybe if we didn't have an established friendship and we were both feeling very, you know, like very strongly showing our types, or if we were both like very non-resourceful, could very easily see that being bad. But I think we're both in a very healthy place with who we are. And I think that means that we have more times that complement each other, which is the fun stuff to talk about.
On complimenting each other. It's funny. I'll have to like have a screenshot or an actual like image of the drawing. Yeah, right here. That I put in my notes, specifically under Faith's type, the challenger. Or what was the other? Because you were like, I don't know if I like the
challenger.
I
think I like the powerful person more.
So funny. and Nick was like, no, I think this tracks. But anyways, I drew a couple images of me and Faith by way of the illustration that was being given, because someone said like 8s tend to for better or for worse, they tend to like blow like a gust of wind against a tree, and like they're like looking for people who
will bounce back.
Yeah, who will bounce back, who like can withstand.
I'm looking for like a weeping willow.
Yeah.
It's gonna like blow over and then come back up.
Yeah.
And be fine.
Right. Exactly.
I'm not looking for a tree that's I'm gonna bring my energy and they're just gonna like and break, and then it's not like fun. I'm like, okay, well, next.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so I drew Faith with like very like Kuromi vibes, where it's like angry happy face. Like that was her, and then me as like, for my context, growing up on Guam, a palm tree, just like I'm still here. I didn't break. My base is strong. And then the other drawing next to it was later there was one of the coaches was talking about how like specifically 8 and 9 relationships are like really cool because you kind of feel like they're like the wind beneath your wings a little bit, and they like help you fly. So I drew myself as a kite, and Faith's strong wind was like helping me fly, and it was so cute. But I think one of the other coach was talking about how like it honestly like is such a, you feel like so empowered and like complimented when an 8 believes in you, because they don't believe in everyone. It's like, it's not like nicety, like it's not, they're not just saying that, they will never literally just say something. And so I do think that's true, because like so when I tell Faith my delulu dreams and she's not like okay and instead she's like, I love that, like, and whatever, like lean into it, it does like make me feel like really empowered, and like it instills confidence, like I am capable, I can do this, or we can do this, whatever it is. Like so I think that's like a really cool strength of like an 8 and a 9, because me and Luke were talking about this, because he and I it's really interesting. We could talk about this in a different, we should like do like a marriage episode. I think
that would be
really
so fun. We should do that.
But like Luke and I are similar in a lot of ways, and then really different in other ways. So we're just talking about how we relate with people who have different like type, or who are a different type than us, or just like relate to the world differently. And specifically we're talking about like 8s and 9s, and I was like, I like, yes, like there can be recipe for disaster if it's like you're not healthy, if the 8's not healthy, but I do think like an 8-9 friendship is like unstoppable, because like you're like you're like driving us forward, and I'm like,
you're showing me
paving the way with other people too, of like let me be the bridge here. Though I did love that like someone who is literally your family member was shocked to hear that you were an 8.
I honestly, I talked to Nick a little bit after, Nick, my husband, a little bit after the class, and I was like, part of me started to feel like imposter syndrome after 2 people, because it was someone that was family, and then after the class we talked to one of the coaches, and they had mentioned, like, I was kind of surprised, but then she was like, it makes sense. I was like, okay, great, cool. But I was like, in my head, I was like, am I not 8 enough to even be an 8? Like, what am I?
You're not that boss level 8.
I'm like, not, but I think it's just that, like, I think you present differently in, you know, your different bubbles.
For sure.
And where I feel more secure, I do feel like I can bring more force. And so, like, in this, in our friendship, it's like, I can, when we first were meeting, I was more reserved. Because that's just who I am as a person. But once we were friends, I was like, let's do this thing. You have that idea? We should do that thing. What if we added this thing to it? And so I am, like, comfortable here and can be aggressive in a positive way.
I think what's interesting, too, is, like, you're an 8 and I have an 8 wing. I think, like, when I'm more comfortable, my 8 wing, like, comes out a lot more. And so, I do think like you encourage this like more assertive side in me, and I think what's interesting is like not only does it affect us like on like an or like a one-on-one relationship level, I also think that it affects in a positive way how I relate to like our general friend group. So like in that social setting, because I've caught my, like, not in like a ick way, but like I've caught myself or noted instances where I feel like I've been like more like jokey or just like more assertive about like whatever conversations we're having in like a group setting, where normally I would like not say anything. I'll just like know that like this is a safe space to like to, you know, share this information or this point of view. No, like I love these people, they love me, they know who I am. I don't need to be like reserved in that way. And so I've noticed that too. Like, I think it's interesting how like our friendship has impacted the rest of the group too, like all my individual relationships with them, and also like my relationship as a whole with everyone else, which is pretty cool.
And I do think like on the flip side, being an 8, spending time with a 9, my 9 score is very low. Like I'm a 13%, but I think that like I think that spending more time, like us spending more time together, means that I'm seeing the like benefit of not having conflict all the time, like seeing that like, oh, I can come to the table and not be aggressive and not have to, like, fight to show my point or anything. I can come in, hear people out, and then also say, like, okay, here's my thought without it being a conflict or causing any problems and keeping peace. Yeah. And because in years past, if I would have, like, compromised or like brought peace, that to me felt like losing, which is the thing with 8s, is like they don't want to lose. Like I don't care about winning, but it's like, who cares about first place? I just can't be last place, right? And so in the peace side of things, it's like if I come in and I don't share exactly what I need and show my aggression, like bare my teeth to get my point across, like I'm gonna lose. And so like now I can see, especially like you're saying, like in our friend group, like I can come into this room of like 10-15 people
who are all very different,
all very different, and say like, here was my thought, and then they'll go, oh well, here was my thought, and it's not a fight, and I don't have to be mean, right? And that's great. And so I do think it's very nice that we kind of balance that way. And then I had texted you about one thing. So in your core, you have your core type, and then you have kind of like types that you lean towards in stress or insecurity, and in security, not in insecurity. And so I was talking with Nick after we learned about the 2, 3s, and 4s, which is the heart, and he was like, how have you not noticed that you're more girly pop around Asia? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you are so giggly and girly pop when Asia's around. And I was like, what? And then I thought about it, and I was like, oh, I feel secure here. Like, I feel like when I'm with you, I don't have to be aggressive. I don't have to do this. I can feel secure, and I can be loving and helpful. And, like, that is, like, healthy feeling for me to not have to be tense and like have my fists up like when I come here. And even with young adult group, most of the time there are times where I still am coming in as an 8, very fair. 8 but like most of the time I can come in and say like, how can I help, what can I do to like help you feel like at peace here, what can I do to help you feel loved, and like that allows me to be a little more giggly and carefree versus aggressive and mean. So I love that.
That's so awesome, because I think like similar to for me, so my secure lane is I go to 3, and I feel like I can, it doesn't have to be a negative connotation around like image. Like, yes, like if you do things for image, or I don't have to care, I don't have to care so much in a negative way, like how people see me. Like I can be excited about content I'm making or something I'm creating, and not preface it with like, I am just doing this thing. Whatever.
No shame.
There's no shame there. And I think like you have like encouraged me a lot to, like there doesn't have to be like a negative connotation attached to the things that you do. Like you can in confidence like be excited about the things that you have achieved, and then not be like wrong and like selfish to do that. And not fake either. And not like fake, I think that's a big thing, that like a non-resourceful 3 is trying to present an image that is not true. Right. And so like a lot of times with content, people are like, oh, that's just fake. Right. And so I think it is like the fun side of it is that like when it's healthy is like, this is me, look. Like that's cool. Or like fun or cute or whatever. And it's not like I'm faking this. Like this is real and authentic. Yeah. So sweet. I love that. I know. I love knowing our types now that we know each other so well. Yeah. I'm curious how you relate to Nick, with him being like a 7. Yeah. So Nick, I won't share too much, but Nick is comfortable. Our Nick is tea. This is also their episode, and they don't even know it. No, Nick is a 7.
Which, what's the word for 7?
Entertainer or the joyful
person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we have, so when Nick first took the Enneagram test was in 2020, so that would have been like 4 years ago, and he scored, I believe, as a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we've lived a whole lot of life since then, mm-hmm. and fought through things in our lives, not each other, and like
sticking it out,
dealt with trauma, and like our relationship with the Lord is so incredibly better and different than mm-hmm. it was in 2020.
Yeah.
Which also 2020 was just a wild,
that was wild
hard year for people. Yeah. And so like him being a 7 means that he's bringing spontaneity and fun and joy, and like really loves that high and thrill of joy, but also feels pain like very strongly.
Yeah.
And so the way kind of we talked a little bit about it last night and after the class that covered head triad, because mm-hmm. He was like, I just want to use this as a tool to like love you better, and I was like, I love that. I'm gonna cry so right now. But yeah, so the way that kind of plays out is that Nick brings this kind of like light and fun to things where I'm feeling like I have to be aggressive. Mm-hmm. And so like I mentioned earlier, like my wing is a 7, and I do have that spontaneity now of like, oh yeah, we can let's just go do that thing. That's fun. Let's go get dinner with friends. Let's go get a tattoo, whatever. And that me tagging along in that shows Nick love. Yeah. And like, I'm going with what you're needing, mm-hmm. and like what is giving you a thrill, and that's fun, but it's not unhealthy. Yeah. Like I'm not encouraging him to, break sobriety or whatever. And that's a part of it too, right, is sobriety. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's kind of on his side. And then on my side, in being aggressive means that like when he is feeling that very strong pain or even that very strong joy, and I'm like watching to see how people are reacting, mm-hmm. and that like, or I'm watching to see what's causing him to feel that. So, like, a lot of time, like, an easier illustration is just, like, when he is feeling pain strongly, my powerful person side is, like, I'll fix this for you right now, however you need me to. Yeah. Like, do you need me to confront them for you? I will. Do you mm-hmm. need me to do this I will. And, like, I have had to learn to tone that down because he is a head triad. Yeah. He needs to think and process. Right. Whereas my thought is like, go now, fix it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was something, even in premarital counseling, that mm-hmm. was something where it was like, hey, you can't take 5 to 7 business days to resolve your feeling, but you can't do it right now. Yeah. Like, and so it's like, telling both of us, like, meet in the middle. Mm-hmm. If you need a day, take a day and then talk. But like, at least say like, I have this problem. I don't need mm-hmm. you to fix it right now. Yeah. And so we talked about that. But also I talked about how in our relationship with, like I was talking to him about how in our relationship, because I do feel so safe and secure there, that I feel like, so they used the illustration in class that you have this big scary house mm-hmm. and locked away in a room under the stairs, just like Harry Potter, is your inner child that you're protecting. And you're like, you could burn the whole house down as long as that kid is safe in there. And I feel like when I'm around Nick, and of course our friends and you too, mm-hmm. but like in Nick and I's marriage, I feel like it's reversed. Where like I have this really beautiful, fun, childish house. Yeah. And there's a room under the stairs where I have a monster locked in there. Yeah. And I only let it out to bare its teeth when necessary. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is, like, how I feel, that I can see that I've been loved well in our marriage, is that, like, I get to do dumb stuff and be giggly and, like, love Disney way too much for a grown woman and, like, all of those things because, like, my inner child is in control now. Yeah. But not in an unhealthy way. Right, but, like, in a balanced way. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, my powerful 8 aggressive monster haunted house vibe is locked under the stairs and only there if I need it. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that's just how I feel like we kind of balance in that way of, like, we have light and we have power. And I feel like that makes us kind of, like, unstoppable in a sense of, like, as long as I keep pushing on and bringing the force and he keeps bringing, like, the joy, then, like, it's great. Yeah. Balance as well.
That's really cool. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm very thankful. I am curious because we are two different types,
Yeah.
Nick and I, but you and Luke are not.
Yeah.
So what is that like?
So Luke technically, all right, so he can be stubborn about things for sure. And I can hyperfixate, as we know. And so when I first learned about the Enneagram, I just like, I don't think in like a weird way, I just like really wanted to learn more about it. And so I was like doing a lot of research, and I also am a verbal processor. So he was hearing a lot of the research and he was like overwhelmed and then stubborn about it. And so he like didn't really care. So technically he did like take a test. And he did, I think, score the same as me initially too. And I was really like, on one hand, I totally could see it. And on the other hand, I was really confused by it. And then, so fast forward to now, he took it again. He once again scored as a core type 9. But once again, his like reformer personality, and also his loyalist and I forget the name of the 5. Can I read upside down? The wise person. Those also scored really high. But like literally his core type and the 1 were like within 5% of each other. So I think like that actually brought a lot of clarity now that we've been like married for even longer than when I first like learned about Enneagram stuff. Was like Luke really is driven by peace. That is so true. Like I feel like less confused by that now. But his like need to be like right for the sake of rightness, and his need, like the undue pressure that he could put on himself for that, is like it does actually work really well with like being a 9, because like part of, like I said earlier, being a 9 is like you're kind of being all things to all people. And he also is the oldest sibling, and his younger brother, he's never been typed, but I'm pretty sure he's a 7 as well, 7 or with a lot of 4 or something. And so really grew up also in like a where I feel my family tended to like over communicate and like over like kind of to the point of exasperation sometimes, work through conflict. I think like Luke's family was like opposite, where like they had a hard time like entering into conflict and working through that without just like dismissing it. And so I think like all of that combined for him, and also growing up in like a pretty like strict religious environment, I don't know, it made him like very reserved. Like he never felt the need to like convince people. Like I don't know, it's hard to explain because he's very unassuming. Like he doesn't really care if you don't get him. Like that's like not, he could care less. Like he's not trying to get himself to be known, but he is like driven by there being peace. But I feel like where we are similar is that, and then where we're different is like, I think more than me, he feels the need to be like all things to all people. Not in like a people pleasing way, but in like, oh, I need to be like the responsible person here, or I need to be the logical person here, or whatever. And so it's just really interesting because like, you know, Luke's been going through like a really cool journey, like like understanding like his anxiety and like how to like handle that in a healthy way. And what's so interesting, like I don't think people believe us sometimes when we describe this, but when we like are in conflict with each other, you know, not to say there's like it's devoid of emotion completely. Like there definitely are emotions sometimes, but honestly we like such a weird I feel like weird, or like not normal process compared to maybe like people that are different types, where we have to work really hard for both of us to understand like how we feel about something. We know that there's like a negative reaction, but we talk through it a lot to be like, okay, so yeah, this made me feel, I had a negative reaction to this, and I think it's because of this, and we have to like do that for each other. I think like because I do have like a little bit more like, even though it's not very high, I have like a little bit more of a score in heart, even like I said, it's very low still. I'm able to like have language for it, and that just could be from like growing up in a very over communicative family, like having that language for that. Luke has like, he's coming from like not very much, and so we've worked a lot on like, it's okay to feel things, and like we just need to like work through what that is. And I'm so proud of you for like saying something, because we honestly like are not in conflict very often, and so like it's good work to like be in conflict with each other sometimes. But I think because of that, a really cool positive thing is like, I do think like the the physical spaces that we are a part of, and also like digital spaces, have like, I feel like, become a sense of home for other people, or a safe space. Like there's no need when people enter the space to feel like they need to perform or do whatever. Like it can just be a place of rest. And so that I really appreciate, because I think like if we were wired differently, it might not be that way. But we're able to just like come and rest together and invite people into that rest.
Yeah. And to speak to that, like my husband, who is a 7, who needs to be all the time thrilled, seeking something, loves to come here and sit on their couch in the living room and watch Supernatural with Luke.
It's so
and they
true.
don't speak.
I know.
They just sit. Nick scrolls TikTok probably to have multiple things happening in front of his face, and Luke just sits and watches. And Nick is like, I had such a great time watching Supernatural with Luke. And I'm like, okay, love that for you. You guys didn't interact at all. And he's like, I know.
It's kind of nice. So funny. I love that.
I think that that very much speaks to you guys creating a very like safe and peaceful environment wherever you go.
Right.
We've covered a lot. Like we've talked.
Yeah, we have.
Who we are.
Maybe more than we needed, but it's okay.
Always more than we needed. But we talked who we are, how we relate, and then like our marriages and relationships there. But like now I want us to focus on like how we can grow. Because even if we are healthy, there aren't always going to be like not every season of life is going to be healthy. And so like how can we grow, and what's a challenge in that growth or challenges? So do you want to start?
Sure. So like I said, the main like struggle for 9s is like laziness. I think like a defense against like things going on, and whatever you're feeling inside is just numbness, like numbing yourself. And that comes from someone in the class, I said this like really well, like 9s are like so good at anticipating what possible conflict possibly can come. And I can like definitely attest to that, where there's like, I don't know, so like random things are like, I just need to ask a friend, this is like I remember this specifically from like years ago. I had to ask one of my friends for a favor, and I just felt like it was really going to put them out. Not a big deal at all. I was like so stressed out, and Luke was like, they're your friends, like you can ask them. And I just remember like my brain like short-circuiting, because I was just thinking about like, what if this inconveniences them for this, and that it causes this, and that causes this, and then they'll feel like I'm needy, and and so anyways, I think that that's like a really big like area that I constantly have to grow in. And so I love, we were laughing about this just now, that according to this, like the discipline for like growth as a 9 is faith.
It's me.
So cute.
I'm here to fix all the 9s.
Honestly, it's like having faith in the relationships you've made. Having faith that like you don't have to be in control of situation, and like you don't have to put on this facade or like be less or like take up less space in a room for things to stay at peace. I think like one of the, like obviously like I've learned about the Enneagram in the past, but like one of the things I thought was really cool about this class was like really thinking about like, okay, the areas that you scored super low in or super high in, like why do you feel like you had to be those things? Or in my case, why did you feel like you never could be those things? Because there were like a few that I feel like I scored lower in than when I was like younger. And I don't know if that's like if I'm like regressing a little bit of like feeling like a lack of confidence in like certain areas or what, I don't know. And it also could just be like the day I tested out. I don't really know. But with that still, I want to be mindful of like, it's okay to lean into areas that like you don't feel like you are. And I think like hanging out with Faith and, you know, just being with people that are able to see yourself from a different perspective, like helps like you grow in these areas that you feel like, oh, I can't possibly be that, you know, like I can't possibly like acknowledge my emotions, because like that would not be good for people, and like that's not right. So I think like there's just like a really good calling there. I think like when you are grounded in who you are and who you know you're called to be, like it allows you to like to truly like seek peace and be at peace in a healthy way, and not like I said, like not in a fake peace type of way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about yours?
So I feel like a lot of my challenges came earlier in my, like a few years ago. I think I was like really fighting the challenge of like being an 8 and being the non-resourceful, very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can recall the feelings now of thinking I went into that room and I thought that I was being me, but I scared people away. And so the challenge that, or like obstacle for growth that's like listed is cluelessness. I think that I experienced that a lot.
Yeah.
In the past. When I saw it on the page this time, I literally wrote "hold up" next to it because I don't feel like I'm clueless. But then I got in my head and I was like, oh my gosh, what if I'm clueless to being clueless? No. What if I'm so unaware of how clueless I am that that's my cluelessness?
But I think you have been like, I think I was gonna say this earlier when you were like feeling like some sort of way about people like not knowing that you're an 8. Like I think like part of it is just your growth of like I've seen like times where you're like, you know what, I noticed I was like really stubborn in this, like I need to like make time for this. And I think you've like done a lot of self-reflection, and so I would say that's probably why you're not showing like as much cluelessness now.
Yeah, that's what Nick was like. I think people just think that of like the non-resourceful 8 and you don't match up with that as much, which like I do still have those tendencies. Yeah. I normally just reel them in. Yeah. Which I think is that self-awareness. But there are definitely times still that I can like look back in the past year and be like, I went into that trying to find a fight. Yeah. And I was clueless to how it made the people around me feel. I was aware of who I was in that moment. I was aware that I was like bringing negative energy. Right. But I didn't think about, like, how uncomfortable that can be for literally everyone else to experience. Right. So, like, I get it in that part. But I was like, that's terrible. That's wrong. I wrote ouch next to it also. That's so funny. So, yeah, the transformation call is mercy. And, of course, knowing of the Lord's mercy towards us, like, and me as an 8, knowing that, like, the Lord is merciful. And so, like, we're trying to reflect who he is. Why would I not be? And one of the coaches gave the image, which I wrote down because I loved it so much, of, like, you're in the corral, like, Old West, and you, like, got both of your 6 shooters out. And then, like, an actual healthy, good 8 will be like, no. Not the time. Put it away. Not the time. It's not now. That's so true. And so, like, I feel that. Yeah. And I think it is something I have to. I do think that I think of self-awareness more than some people might have to. Yeah. As an 8. I think that's the part of it, is that I am self-aware, but I have to really think about being self-aware. I gotta be thorough about that. Yeah, very meta sounding, but, like, yeah, like, when I am going into, especially a new space, I am, like, in my head being like, okay, remember, you bring a lot. Reel it in, which is why I tend to reserve more. And that is, I think, me trying to, like, put my 6 shooters away and be like, not the time. You can discuss this calmly without any weapons. And so, yeah, I think that's, like, where I am continuing to see growth is, like,
that's cool.
Especially in heated moments. Yeah. Like, if I am feeling an emotion very, very strongly, I have to stop. But also I need to work on communicating that better. Yeah, right. Like, Nick and I talked about it last night because he was like, he said something of like, it's weird because I just never see that, like, aggression in an angry way. And he was like, but I've heard your parents and, like, your friends from high school talk about that. And I'm like, it is because in my head I'm saying, do not say a word of what you want to say. Do not. Like, we gave a very small example with each other because he was like, because I told him, I was like, sometimes I need you to just do what I need you to meet me where I am energy wise and just do the thing without me saying, like, do this thing, because in my head I'm thinking that inconveniences you, and don't want to make you do that because I care about you.
Yeah.
So like we gave the example, a very small example of, we go out, get fast food. They mess up my order a lot because I'm vegetarian.
Yeah.
And so like we get home with the food, didn't check the food. We get home, we sit down, and I open my food and it is wrong. Yeah. And I get irrationally angry. Like, I'm like, this is so stupid. How could they mess up? And all I wanted was a cheese quesadilla. How hard is it to not put chicken in a quesadilla? And I get really angry, and I give a big reaction for the smallest thing. And then Nick, trying to be so sweet and loving, goes, do you want me to go get you something else? And I go, no, I'm fine. It's fine. And because in my head, I'm thinking, obviously I want you to go get, how am I supposed to starve? And so he was like, oh, I didn't know it went that deep for you. And I was like, it always goes that deep. I'm just always reeling it in. Yeah. So that is like something for me to keep working at, is like not only self-awareness and not only like mercy, but like verbalizing calmly what I'm feeling. A vulnerable it's thing. So hard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How am I supposed to say that without scaring you to make you say, like, you know, like the reason that I'm either not vulnerable at all, or I'm vulnerable and also aggressive in a threatening way, to be like, just know that if you break my trust and you break my vulnerability trust, then like I'll mess you up. Yeah, right. And so it's like I have to work on not doing that and just being vulnerable, because I can trust people. Yeah. Not everyone is trying to hurt me. So yeah, that's my area that I can grow in for sure.
Look at that. So much growth.
We're working through it. We're working. We are. But yeah, so now we've definitely covered it all. Yeah, for sure. We've done it all. No stone unturned. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed, because it is fun for us to get to sit down and talk about who we are and who our friendship is, and like just like how we can grow, because it's also good in your friendships to know like, oh, she's working on that. Let me encourage her in that. Let me call her out gently when she needs, you know, whatever. And so it is fun for us to talk about it, but I hope it's also fun for you guys. We would love to hear about your Enneagram types. We would love to hear about your Enneagram stories, or how you relate to us, or how you don't relate to us in our Enneagrams. I want to hear all of it. So make sure that you're either commenting, or and you can comment on Spotify now. I didn't know that was a thing. Fun. On podcasts, you can comment. You can do it on YouTube. You can send us an email or a DM on any of our socials. We'd be so excited to hear your Enneagram delulu vibes. Yes. And of course, we want you to rate, review, subscribe. Don't one star.
We already did the ones, okay? So just...
It's out of our system.
It is.
It's 5s from here on out.
Yeah, obviously.
No, it is anonymous. Rate us how you feel. I get it. But, of course, we would love a rate that's positive. Follow us on everything. Any of that sort of engagement helps us kind of work our way up as a podcast.
Exactly. And your delulu to dulu today is, you know, we talked about inner children, your inner child. Yeah. If your inner child just wants a sweet treat, I think you need to do diligence by your inner child by giving them a sweet treat. Yeah. Because they deserve it. You deserve it. We all deserve it.
Absolutely.
But thanks so much for hanging out with us. I'm Asia the girl.
And I'm Faith Okay.
We'll see you later, besties.
Bye.
Hey, bestie.
Bestie, I'm Faith. Okay, that's it.